Hello everyone, welcome back. This is the second video on inheritance where we'll see how to implement various kinds of inheritance. Till now that you have seen, a class person derives another class student. This is what we call as single inheritance. What is single inheritance? When a single class is derived from another class, that is B is derived from A. B is derived from A. Then it is called as the single inheritance. Okay. There are more type of inheritance like multiple inheritance where one class can derive multiple classes can derive a single class. So that will be called as multiple inheritance. People might get confused in multiple and hierarchical inheritances. We will see how to differentiate between the two. So if I say that there are classes A and B that derive a class C, then it will be called as multiple inheritance, right? Multiple classes deriving a subclass, it will be called multiple. And if there is a class A that is deriving B and C, so multiple subclasses are derived from a single base class, then it will be called hierarchical, right? Then it will be called hierarchical inheritance. There is one more type of inheritance which is similar to single inheritance where A derives B and B derives C. You can extend this any number of times. So you are extending the capabilities one by one. We'll see the former two today. So I told you that this person derives the student in the last video. What if I want to say that there is a class as teacher that is also derived as a person, because teacher is also a person. So I can say there is a class teacher. There is a class teacher that is also derived from person. The teacher can have the teacher ID, that is employee ID. I'll say the employee ID is 101, right? There has to be a constructor function for this. So I'll say definite, right? What it will take employee ID also. And as I told you, the base class constructor function has to give the values to the child classes constructor function has to give the values to the base class constructor function. So base class was having name, so I have to supply that also. I'll first say self dot empid equals empid, and then I'll say, so in the previous video I told you that you can call this constructor function using person.init. There is another method that I can show you. If you call just the super function, right, super, and you supply the name here, this will work the exactly same way the previous function worked, right? Person.init. You can omit this whole thing using super. This super function automatically calls the base class constructor function, right? So you can give it in this way also. I would like to give in the standard way because I have to supply the name of the class that it is doing. It has to give me self and name, right? So in this way I can throw the values to the base class as well. Now what I have to do, I have to describe just one more function called as this, maybe this. It will just print the empid, right? And it has to be accessed using self. So this way you can see there are multiple classes that are derived from the same class. This is called as hierarchical inheritance. If we try to execute it, there is an object created for the student. I would like to create for the teacher, supplying first the empid, that will be 201, and then the name as what I will do, I will call the display function. This function, this will be t. So if I call the functions separately for these two objects, it will give me different values. As you can already see, Abhay 200 student called is for the student, Gopal 201 is for teacher. So you can derive multiple classes from a single base class called as hierarchical inheritance. Next is multiple inheritance. So if you want to see that, I will just remove the teacher class. So in multiple inheritance, multiple classes have to derive a single class. So student is a person, but it's also associated to the games club. Suppose he is also associated to the games club. So I'll say games club. It's a normal class. Okay, so it has nothing but pass, right? So I don't have to determine anything. You can extend the functionalities here. If I say that yeah, student is deriving not just from person, from games club as well, how we'll do it? You can use the comma operator and you supply the name of the other classes. In this way, you can use the comma and use the comma again and again until all the classes are mentioned from which the child class is being derived. So you can have multiple classes from which the student is derived. In this way, using comma operator, you can specify multiple number of classes from which a single class is derived. That is how you implement the multiple inheritance, right? The last one is multi-level inheritance. I already told you that if a class is derived from a base class which is already a subclass to a base class, then I can say that is multi-level inheritance. So if I say that yeah, person is a student and student is having a gender, right? So if I'm adding a gender which is derived from student, what I can say, just pass it. This will create, for person it is the base class, for student it is single inheritance of person to student, for gender it is multi-level inheritance for person to student to gender, right? So this is how the multi-level inheritance will work. Now I want to tell you about the properties of different variables that are going to be inherited. Now till now you might have understood that all the variables of this class and all the functions of this class, base class, will be accessible by the object of the derived class or the child class. Okay, but this is not the case with all the variables. Sometimes you might want to declare some variables which are not accessible to the derived classes. Okay, how you will do it? You will make the variables as private. How to make the variables private? Just use double underscore before them. If you use double underscore before the variable name, this will create the variable as private variable. And now if you want to access the variables as in the derived classes, then it will not happen, right? So if I want to create this name as the variable private variable, then I will just say double underscore name. Okay, if I want to call this, it is giving me an error. I'll show you the exact error that is giving me. Student object has no attribute name. Why it is giving me student object? So where is student object? This is student object. It has no name. So why it is calling the name? But before it was not giving me an error. Why? Now it is giving me an error because I have used it as a private variable to the person class. If I remove this double underscore from here and here, it will again give me an output. Teacher is not defined. Okay, so I'm using teacher somewhere. I just have to remove this. Okay, so it is giving me the value. If I again create this as private variable, it will give me an error because the name would not be defined in the child class. The name would be not defined in the child class. So this is how you can create some variables as private variables which are accessible only in that class and not in the derived classes. Okay, any variable that is private is accessible only in the class. Any variable that is public is accessible in the class, derived class, and throughout the program. Any variable that is protected is available in the class and the derived classes, right? So the access level is private is most private is most under leveled. Then we have protection level. This is I'm writing about protection level. Okay, then is protected variables, and that are public variables. How do we define public variables? Just define the variables. How do we define protected variables? Use a single underscore before them. And how do we define private variables? Use double underscore before them. Okay, this is how you do it. That is everything about inheritance. You can use inheritance in your programs to avoid rewriting of the code. That is it for this module. Okay. I hope you have learned much about object-oriented programming till now. That is it. Thank you.